So I'm going to try and get through my presentation pretty quickly here to leave some time for questions. I'd really like to do that. I'm not going to dive too deep into the products. We've got a ton of sessions following this, as well as I had to completely redo my presentation after Suhas talked this morning because, well, he asked me to send him my slides about a week or so ago, and now I know why. So I ended up having to redo all my slides. So I didn't really want to bore you guys with a bunch of my slides being presented by Suhas. Though his looked better. He must have had some hired help that actually made his look better than mine. But I'm really excited here to talk to you guys about RhoMobile Suite. It's a brand new product that we fundamentally launched last week. It's really a culmination of a lot of hard work by the organization and a series of combined teams, and we'll talk about that a bit later. But really kind of one of the things was wanted to talk to you about OS trends, and I know we kind of beat this topic up a lot, but it's really quite fascinating when you actually think about what's going on out there in the industry today. A lot of people go, well, which OS should I choose? What do I standardize on? How do I build my applications if you're a partner in ISV? What platform do you target your applications for? And it's really not an easy answer. First off, when we start looking at mobility in the world today, and we look at it from a world's population perspective, and I know Tom likes to talk about this as well a lot. When you think about it, there's approximately 6 billion mobile subscribers worldwide today. That's astounding. That's astounding. And I hope a lot of them have jobs, and I hope a lot of them work in the enterprise in some fashion or another, and they need work applications, right? It's not just about Twitter and you know, Angry Birds and, you know, draw something or Words with Friends or something like that. What's amazing is that, first off, that's only about 86% of the world's population. I'd say that's pretty decent market saturation from a deployment perspective in terms of driving into that market and saying, how many other users can I grow into? What's even more astounding is there are more people in the world today that have access to cellular coverage. In other words, they have cellular coverage and they can use a mobile phone than people that have access to television, electricity, or even safe drinking water. That's amazing. That means they can use their cell phone because they have cellular coverage, but they don't actually have access to electricity to charge their phone. I think that's kind of funny. So we've got to work on the battery situation. But nonetheless, what's amazing is people think that the race for mobile smartphones is over already. 6 billion people have access to mobility. 6 billion people using mobile, but only 830 plus million are actually using smartphones. Everyone else is using what we call dumb phones or feature phones or whatever the name you want to look at. 5.6 billion people in the world today still using dumb phones. So what exactly does that mean? Well, when I look at where we're at from a smartphone sales perspective and where feature phones are, this is where we're at here today. And as you can imagine, there's still enormous growth opportunity for smartphones as well as actually even for feature phones as that trend starts to shift. And when we look at the market today inside the United States, still, right, we talk about a two-horse race for most part between Android and Apple. But even in the US today, in terms of overall mobility, mobile smartphones or mobile OSs or whatever the phone you use today, is it really a two-horse race? When we go back and we look at how much room there is for growth still from an OS perspective, right? Globally, where that trend is projected to go over the next 4 years alone, right? How much room there is still for that growth inside North America only. And really, you start to ask yourself, well, which OS do I pick? Right? We sit here and we seem to think, well, iOS and Android, I'll build for that and I'll be safe. It's kind of funny when you think about it, right? But there's still a ton of growth, right? The race is not over. 830 million users, 5.6 billion left to go. There is no way, shape, or form is the race over. The race has just started, and I think that's a really important message here. Not to mention that these are kind of the OSs that we think about or talk about today, some obviously more prominent than others. But what about all the new announcements that have come out, right? Suhas kind of led on to a couple earlier today already. Tizen, which is a joint effort between Samsung and Intel. They're going to be making a big push, and if anyone doesn't believe that Samsung, from a smartphone, cell phone perspective, isn't going to make a big push on their own OS, you'd be surprised. Mozilla has now come out and announced the fact that they're going to be going to market with a mobile OS, as well, even a newer one, Ubuntu, right, as well as announced the fact that they're looking at creating a smartphone mobile OS. And then, of course, rumor has it forever and ever and ever that Facebook's going to do it. And I think that may be the case. You know, I know my wife keeps sitting there saying, when's that Facebook phone going to come out? When's that Facebook phone going to come out? And I keep wondering to myself, don't you already spend enough time on that website today? So when you think about it, and you think about what platform do I really develop my applications for moving forward, it's not an easy decision, right? And we start to take a look at it, and we think about where the mobile enterprise trends have really gone. Well, first off, we know the introduction of Apple and consumer-grade operating systems has really driven a BYOD phenomenon in the enterprise today, right? And how that's really affected buying trends for enterprises. There is a need for enterprise-class devices that are very purpose-built, rugged in nature, that are used by specific workers in an organization, task workers, line workers that are repeating the same job over and over again. They do it hundreds of times a day, thousands of times a day. They need the durability and the life cycle and the device built purposely for that, right? But if you're an iPhone user or an Android user, those devices, from a consumer perspective, are generalist devices. They're built to not be great at necessarily any one thing, but devices that can do a lot of things. So those might be devices that executives are walking around with, or floor managers, or something like that, because they're tied to corporate email, but they still need to be able to run the same application that that line worker or that task worker is running on a rugged enterprise device today. So when we think about it, and we think about kind of where trending is going, right, an influx or desire from a BYOD perspective is affecting the enterprise. The enterprise is evaluating and trying to understand, I don't know if Renee's in here, Renee's probably in here somewhere, trying to understand the direction that Microsoft's going in, right? Windows Mobile, now called Windows, actually that's wrong, Windows Embedded Handheld, I apologize. And then moving on towards what's coming next. Is Windows Phone 7, Windows Phone 8, what's the plan around that? Windows 8, we know that Microsoft has a lot of focus around Windows 8, but the direction that they're headed in, right, creates some concern and uncertainty for sure. Right? We see that Android has grown 59%, enormous. It's kind of funny actually because BlackBerry is down to 6.4%. 4 years ago, did anyone ever think that BlackBerry, I guess maybe more than 4 years ago, 5, 6 years ago, right, BlackBerry was the enterprise device, right, for email and everything. Did anyone ever think that BlackBerry would be at 6.4% market share today? No? When iOS made the huge leap and everyone said, wow, this is it. This is it. iOS is the way to go. 2 years later, Android. So in a matter of 6 years, we've had 3 kings of the hill. That doesn't even take into consideration what's going on with Nokia and their complete drop out of the market space. So maybe in 6 years, you call that 4 kings of the hill, come and gone. Absolutely come and gone from an OS perspective. So what does that leave? We think about the fact that the race is nowhere near over. 830 million people use smartphones today. 5.6 billion still left to make a decision. And a lot of big companies coming into play about making smartphone OSs. So what does that really leave us to? That really leaves us to thinking about how we build solutions and applications in an OS-independent way. And that really drives us towards our whole HTML5 strategy. What's Motorola's strategy around this? Well, today, obviously, you know, we're huge supporters of Microsoft and the initiatives around that, leveraging Windows Embedded products, right? Windows Embedded Compact, Windows Embedded Handheld. We're looking at and planning what's next, what's coming down. It's not necessarily Windows Phone. I'm not trying to say anything here other than just trying to get some logos up here, but really saying what's V.next coming from Microsoft in terms of an enterprise smartphone operating system that we can leverage in the enterprise space, right? Where you drive and need those requirements that we talk about on a day in, day out basis, right? The ability to do things like a kiosk mode or security, or be able to integrate directly with LDAP or Active Directory or have multi-login. Ensure the fact that I can wipe the data on the device remotely if the device is lost or stolen, right? All the sorts of things that we've been doing for years and years and years, right? Those still need to exist, and that's really what v.next is, whatever that may be, whatever they happen to call it. I'm not proposing what they call it up here. I'm just saying v.next. Motorola is planning for that today and continually looking at and working with Microsoft on a regular and even weekly basis. But what we have done is we've added to the confusion in the market space today. What OS should I target? I'm used to building enterprise apps. I'm used to building them for Windows CE and Windows Mobile. I use .NET. I use Visual Studio, greatest development tool in the world, in my opinion. May not be everyone's in the room, and that's fine. But we're adding to the confusion by coming out with our ET1 Android tablet, right? We've added kind of this Motorola extension capability to Android to harden it, to make it secure, enable you to do things like have multi-user login instead of just a 4-digit PIN. How secure is that? Everyone in the store knows the 4-digit PIN. You're at Nordstrom, some guy, gets fired and he's disgruntled. Guess what? He has access to all your devices. He can get on to all your devices and start processing transactions. Who knows? Where's the security in that? Mobile payment. Why all of a sudden is that less important from a security perspective than it was a few months ago in terms of when you start thinking about enterprise needs and requirements? So while we've added to the confusion, at the same time, we've really had to think about what direction we're headed in. And that's really what that brings us to in terms of the RhoMobile Suite. We talk about, and we just kind of talked about some of the key challenges associated to that, right? When we look at it, we used to think, oh, it's just the guys that get the rugged devices, the line worker, the task worker, they're the ones that need the mobile apps. But when we now start to think about it, and we think about the pervasiveness of mobility in general in a consumer-oriented market, how that's affected the thinking of executives and other decision makers inside a business, we now need to start thinking about complete end-to-end mobile solutions. It's not just about the line worker or the task worker anymore walking around with a Motorola device. And this is why it's important. Why does Motorola care about this so much? Why would we ever want to do something that enables competitive devices? Because one device doesn't fit all, right? Even a generalist device, right? Why does not everyone use iPhones? I don't know. A lot of people don't like soft input panels for typing. They want more of a BlackBerry look. They want hard keys, right? They want a vertical slide out or a horizontal slide out, or they want a BlackBerry look with a screen and a door. Android gives you that. That's why Android has made a huge leap over iOS. One device doesn't fit all. More specifically, that's why our portfolio is so broad, because depending on the task worker or the type of solution you're employing in the specific industry or vertical, you need a different device for that. We've seen as well, obviously, the buying trends are shifting from an IT to an employee base. That's obviously driving the BYOD phenomenon, right? Clearly, as a result of that and the need to be able to enable my managers and executives with the same applications that I enable the line workers with, a need to be able to support multiple OSs, right? Because a corporation or an enterprise is not buying BlackBerries anymore and handing it out to all their employees. That model and that trend is changing. I've got a brother-in-law that works for D.R. Horton. He's a president for one of their divisions. They have been standardized on Palm OS for about 6 years now. That's a corporate policy and standard. Because of security reasons and needs, right? Instead of doing BlackBerry, they picked Palm for whatever reason. Not to get into that. But all of a sudden, now the CEO and the CTO are walking around with iPhones. Why? Because it's cool and they like it, right? Now what happens? All of a sudden now what's been a corporate standard is now completely changed and shifted, right? So there is definitely a need to support. And it's creating a challenge for them because they have all their applications running on Palm. What do? Growing demands, obviously, of user interface and experience. Controlling the cost of development. I know everyone in this room wants to do that. And leveraging both enterprise and consumer devices in your overall solution. So when we started down this path a couple years ago around looking at, and this is something Motorola always has to do, we always have to have an eye on where we're going from an operating system perspective. As you see, the industry churns on a dime. We evaluate it, we review it, we analyze it every week. Where's the operating system market going? What are we putting on our next device? What are we doing? What are the key requirements? Those are things you have to start planning 2 to 3 years out when it comes to producing some of the hardware that we do. So when we think about it and we realize that, hey, Android was where we were going, we literally sat down 2 years ago and said, we have to create a strategy around this. We have to figure out how to enable our customers and our partners to be able to build solutions moving forward, because we're adding to the confusion. So we decided at that time we're going to create the best possible platform for enterprise apps. And this is important. Focus on enterprise apps for development and managing those solutions out there in the market today. We committed to this strategy roughly 2 years ago, actually, a little over 2 years ago, with a focus on delivering and enabling those on really from a cross-platform line of business perspective. In July of last year, we acquired a small startup called RhoMobile. Really excited about that, obviously. And then in October of last year, we launched our first edition of the effort that we started about 2 years ago called RhoElements. Now, RhoElements at the time actually had nothing to do with RhoMobile from a product set perspective. RhoElements was the initiative that we started 2 years ago around bringing HTML5 and WebKit capabilities to Windows Mobile and Windows CE platforms. Well, what I'm really excited to talk about here is that actually last week on June 31st, we launched the RhoMobile Suite now, which is an integrated solution between what RhoMobile came from an acquisition perspective and what we did around the products from RhoElements. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Thank you, May 31st. Thanks, Jim. All right, good. All right. So our vision, your one application ran on all your devices. Suhas kind of joked about it today and how we founded companies and started companies in the past where we used to talk write once, run anywhere, and that was never really the truth. It is now, though. Whoops. And it can deliver that compelling consumer smartphone experience, right? Really drive that brand. And this is kind of important when you talk about a compelling user experience, right? There's like, well, Sencha, and then there's JQ Touch or jQuery Mobile, and then there's IUI, and there's all these UI frameworks, right? One thing to keep in mind is we don't mandate or tell you what it should look like, right? In the past, you've been beholden to what the operating system says your application experience should look like. A button should look like this, right? Even iPhone drives that standard, which is kind of interesting because most of the UI frameworks are really actually built around iPhone look and feel and standard. So if you actually use one of those UI frameworks, which I think is a great thing, and by the way, all of them work seamlessly and no problem at all with RhoMobile. You know, I was at a customer site last week, and no, you know, we want to use Sencha, and I said, great. Do you want to run on Windows Phone? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, well, what do you want it to look like? Oh, it has to have that Metro UI look and feel. Okay. Well, so one of the things to think about is HTML, the power of it, a blank slate, being able to make it look like what you want. Yes, use those frameworks to get yourself kick-started or drive that experience, but realize that you're not beholden to that, and I think that's a key thing. And really leverage native device capabilities like scanning and GPS and signature capture, and the list goes on. And that was really our vision. When we determined our strategy, it said, hey, we need to be cross-platform. We need to be OS agnostic. What were the 3 things that we cared about at that time? It was truly that write once, run anywhere, right? It was being able to deliver that compelling user experience, but still deliver the value propositions and things you need to do from an enterprise application perspective. So what does that mean? Well, the RhoMobile Suite fundamentally today looks like this. There's 3 key products in it. One is RhoElements, we talked about that, right? It's the client framework for using HTML5 to build what we call hybrid and natively deployed applications, right? And there's a beauty in that in the sense that when we talk about the transition of going from, whoa, what did I do? I went back. Sorry. We talk about application architectures, and I won't dive too deep into this because you guys, this will get covered in a later session. But really when we think about it as well is that how you develop and design a solution, how you architect it, is different depending on your use cases and your needs. Am I inside the 4 walls? Am I outside the 4 walls? Do I only operate when I'm connected? What do I do when I'm disconnected? Do I need data locally? If I do have to have data locally, how do I secure it? These are all questions that you need to think about when it comes to how you architect your application. But rest assured, RhoElements addresses all those problems and challenges and allows you to architect the solution the way you need it to for your use cases, not the way that traditional consumer apps say you should. And I think that's important because in the enterprise world, there's always edge cases, and those edge cases are just as important as the core use cases. Okay? RhoConnect. It was formerly known RhoSync in the RhoMobile days. RhoConnect is something we're relaunching. We've done a lot around it, beefing it up from a feature set perspective, worked a bit on performance, added some great new capabilities to it. But the focus for RhoConnect is predominantly a backend server that allows me to integrate to enterprise systems, right? And synchronize and use native push capabilities to get that data down to the device if I need to or want to. And RhoStudio, it's an Eclipse-based plugin for application development. It's a great developer tool. I'll have a deeper slide on that, but you can download that today and start using it for free, no costs at all. RhoHub is something that will be kind of formally, if you will, in the Motorola sense, launching it soon, as well as RhoGallery, which are additional products that kind of exist in the overall RhoMobile Suite product set. So we talk about RhoElements. In essence, what we're shipping here is RhoElements version 2. What is it? Well, here are some of the key things that we've really done in this release when integrating that with the overall RhoMobile product set. It's been an absolutely astounding effort by the engineering team since acquisition. The guys have been working night and day and just really excited about it. It's truly a high quality product. The types of things you can do with it are just absolutely amazing. Motorola WebKit, we've got a new version of our Motorola WebKit embedded in it. Our HTML5 score as of today, I guess, or whenever it was, the latest release is a 314. I guess we get 2 bonus points. I don't know, maybe it's because it's WebKit, no. But check it out. You'd be surprised from a feature set function perspective, right? You know, not all WebKits are equal. But what's great about RhoElements is that you're driving that consistency. You're not necessarily relying on knowing what version of the browser is going to be on that device, right? You can use Motorola WebKit and you'll feel confident that you're driving that consistency. Full cross-platform support. Unlike RhoElements version 1 that only supported MSI devices, we now support MSI as well as non-MSI devices, including competitive and consumer smartphones, iOS, BlackBerry, Windows Phone 7, and Android. Right? We talked about being able to deploy hybrid or native application solutions, but as well some of the great features that come over from the RhoMobile product set. A full MVC and an ORM model that allows me to develop my application and abstract it out and architect it correctly, making it easier to manage my data that's local. Right? The value of MVC and ORM for developing applications just can't go unsaid. It is absolutely enormous and fantastic. Some of the key things that I'll mention, and I'll jump down here, right, is what's great about it is leveraging the ORM or the MVC pattern, right? You're able to take your application. One of the big things that a lot of people have really been worried about says, if I go HTML5 and I do everything in JavaScript, you know, am I going to get the performance that I need, right? Because it's JavaScript and it's interpreted, right? Or how do I secure my application? Obfuscation only goes so far, right? The value out of the platform here with RhoElements is your code actually gets compiled down to bytecode. So the execution and performance is astounding. I think we had some test results from one of our partners. They were able to insert 120,000 records into the database in under 110 seconds. 120. Can anyone do that with SQL CE? Just out of curiosity. 120,000 records inserted into the database. How about the ability to then execute 800 plus queries on that data in under 3 seconds? I mean, it's pretty astounding stuff. Consumer style look and feel, obviously, but then finally the last thing, compile your application code down to bytecode and secure it, right, so that your IP can't be stolen. I think that's a big thing, obviously, with automatic data encryption, PKI capabilities from a security perspective, without a doubt, truly best in class. When you look at it, kind of what the mobile architecture looks like from a RhoMobile perspective, how do the 3 products work together, right? You use RhoStudio to write your application, right? We provide the framework for your application to run on the devices, RhoElements, and if you want to optionally and you need synchronization or integration capability, depending on whether or not you have your own already or not, you can use RhoConnect to integrate and connect to your back-end system. So when you think about it from the overall product set and feature set, that's what it looks like. RhoElements specifically is a culmination of bringing the RhoMobile Roads framework together, as well as RhoElements and the Motorola WebKit, as well as capabilities, right? So with RhoElements, you get the automatic data encryption. You get NFC and RFID support capabilities, barcode scanning, real-time barcode scanning, signature capture, all those things. But this is how we look at it from a subset perspective, right? RhoElements is fundamentally a superset of what existed previously from RhoMobile. How am I doing on time? Okay. So RhoStudio as well, obviously a new product. Really excited about this one. Like I said, you guys can go up and download it now. Actually, speaking of which, So did anyone hear Suhas earlier today when he talked about number of downloads? How many? 3,000. Yeah, that was outdated data. Since launch on Thursday, we have over 5,000 downloads. So believe me, there's a massive community and initiative and effort around this. That's an exciting thing, yeah. So that's impressive, right? 5 days, including weekends, 1,000 downloads a day. I think that outpaces PhoneGap now that I think about it, doesn't it? Yeah, that's kind of an exciting thing. So RhoStudio, what's great about it is we're putting a lot of effort and initiative behind this. This is key. We realize as people are transitioning from a tool like Visual Studio, they're used to having capabilities and feature sets like the ability to do simulators and that sort of stuff and to debug in real time. And people wonder, how do I do debugging? How do I simulate with a real device using HTML and JavaScript? How do you do that? Well, your answer is RhoStudio. Use RhoStudio. Build your application. Use a simulator. You can develop your entire application without having to have SDKs on the device. Like, how awesome is that? Not only that, but then with the capabilities associated to building and compiling for all your platforms and ensuring the fact that you can get to market faster, you can build iOS apps on Macs. Or sorry, you can, no, of course you can, right? You can build Windows Mobile and Windows CE apps on Macs or vice versa, right? You don't have to have a Mac in order to build an iOS app. That's a great thing. And the beauty of that as well comes in, and I'll talk about it in a minute, is our integration capabilities that we're going to be looking at adding into RhoStudio with our RhoHub service that we'll talk about in a bit. But really, truly, a massive developer community and ecosystem when we start talking about HTML5, right? Again, all those UI frameworks that exist out there today, I'm sure there's going to be some coming out shortly, very along the lines of jQuery Mobile, that'll do things for Windows Phone. And let's not underestimate what Microsoft's efforts are around Windows Phone. I think that that's still an operating system to be reckoned with. Even looking at industry pundits and trends, the Nokia Lumia, right, which was that new device that was built specifically for the Windows Phone operating system, most people actually vote that to be the actual best smartphone on the market today is the Nokia Lumia, which is kind of interesting. If you haven't used a Windows Phone 7, I highly recommend you do. I'm not trying to give a plug for Microsoft here, but it is actually really a compelling operating system. I'm an iPhone user, have been for years and years and years. I'm just now realizing that when I'm like on a phone call and I'm doing something and I want to take my phone off mute and I'm maybe in another app or something like that, like it can take me sometimes 8 clicks to unmute myself. It maybe was really an efficient and impressive operating system when it first came out, but honestly, I'm just not convinced that it necessarily is anymore. RhoConnect, again, a service that we provide, a solution as part of the overall RhoMobile Suite, allows you to integrate and connect to backend systems. I highly recommend that you attend 2 key sessions. I'm going to plug a couple sessions here. I'll plug them all later. But Adam Blum, former CEO of RhoMobile, is here today, and he's going to do an awesome session on RhoConnect later on today. I think, Adam, at what time is it? 3. Is it in here? At 3. Honestly, I think you guys are all locked in here for the rest of the day, but that's okay. And then I think that we also have Lars is going to do a session as well on RhoConnect on actually how to do like specific integration to backend systems and do plugins and that sort of stuff. But we have 2 big sessions coming up on RhoConnect. You don't have to listen to the marketing guy anymore. The rest of the sessions are all developer sessions. They're going to be doing some coding and giving you some real-world examples and that sort of stuff, so that's good. It's a dev conference, right? That's what it's supposed to be after all. So RhoConnect, allow me to easily integrate to backend systems, Siebel, SAP, Oracle. You know, let's hope there's no PIC Universe database users out there anymore. But web services, databases, you name it. Highly scalable and performant. I think this is great and unique about the solution, the architecture, is it's really an industry first. When you start looking at existing synchronization engines out there today, they're all based on SQL Server, Oracle, or dare we say Sybase Unwired platform and their whole iAnywhere framework, right? But really this concept of NoSQL is amazing in terms of being able to manage and associate and determine data differences to be able to send down to the device. And the performance capabilities that you're driving as a result of that are without a doubt astounding and industry first. Native push capabilities, we talked about that, as well as some key features in there around our metadata framework to allow you to easily manage ever-changing. I mean, anyone in here think that my Siebel instance isn't going to ever change over the next 2 years, or my SAP instance isn't going to change? And holy cow, what does that do when they add a new field to that API and my mobile app stops working? And So there are ways to fix that. The metadata framework's an amazing thing. The backend can change all you want. Your mobile app will still work. RhoHub is a service that's up there today. We haven't formally launched it yet, but I can't help but talk about it, right? And some of the things that we're going to be doing about it. We're going to be formally launching it, hopefully later on sometime this year. No promises yet on that. But use it. It's up there. Use it as you wish. It's available. The value out of RhoHub, as we talked about earlier, is your ability to do builds and compilations of iOS. You need to build an iOS app and you don't have a Mac, that's okay. Use RhoHub. It's a free service today. We don't really have any plans of changing that, but please sign up. Anyone in here a RhoHub user already today, just by a quick show of hands? Okay, all right, that's not enough. Come on, guys. All right, get up there, use RhoHub, RhoHub.com. Not a problem. Sign up, start using it, start building your apps, managing it. It's also a great way to allow you to collaborate and work with others, right? Because it has tie-ins with source control, GitHub capabilities, so you can actually share projects, make changes. And there's also a great tool application there called RhoGallery to allow you to manage application provisioning. So it's very cool. So we're going to be working on moving here forward, RhoStudio being tied directly into RhoHub. So if you have RhoStudio on your device and you want to do cloud-based builds, just hit a button and it'll happen. So look for that in new versions of RhoStudio coming up in the next few months. Really exciting stuff. So some of the key takeaways here, and then we'll get some time for questions, is really all of this is driven around our desire and a need to have true device flexibility and portability, right? Really, truly writing it once and running it anywhere and being able to support the operating systems that we really, truly do care about today. Enterprise and consumer grade, right? Leverage your web skills, easy back-end integration for offline use, and anyone that tells me, no, none of my enterprise apps need to work offline, boy, then I'd really question whether or not that's a mission-critical app, right? If it doesn't need to be able to, operate offline, is it truly a mission-critical app? Exploiting those enterprise device capabilities, that list is amazing. Check it out. Enterprise security compliant, we talked about that, right? The ability to secure your application, your IP, your code, your data, the ability to do things like remote wipe of the data and that sort of stuff. So wanted to introduce you real quick. This is not the whole team. There's about 50 to 60 core people associated with this product. If you don't think that this is a massive investment for Motorola, you know, I don't know what shows that is, but 50 to 60 people as part of the core product team. That doesn't even include those outside of it from a sales perspective globally and so on and so forth. This is a handful of the guys from the product team that are here today and tomorrow. I'm going to leave this up here for a second so you can kind of, you know, get their faces in your mind. Find them, talk to them, ask them questions. Most of these guys are presenting in the breakout sessions the rest of the day today and tomorrow. Please talk to them, more than happy to. They're here for your purposes and reasons to be able to answer any questions that you have. Don't ask me any, though. Just ask them. No, just kidding. Just ask them the questions. I really don't know the answers to anything. These are all the smart guys here. So sessions. Please check these out if you haven't already. I assume you've already looked at the agenda. But some big ones. The first one coming up right after this, I think, is Jeff. Is that right? Is that next on the schedule? Rob? Oh, Rob's up next. Okay, Rob's going to be talking about using RhoStudio. Okay, deploying your web apps natively. What if you already have a web app? What if you have a web app today and you want to enable it to be deployed natively? How do you do that? How do you leverage your existing work that you've been doing? How do you leverage that in the RhoMobile platform? That's a cool thing. Check it out. Rob's going to work with you on how to get going on RhoStudio and use it. By the way, you don't have to use RhoStudio if you don't want. It's just a web app. It's an HTML5 app, leveraging device capabilities in the framework that runs on the device. You don't have to. Use your favorite tools if you want. Adding device capabilities and HTML5 features to your app. Darren's going to talk about that. As I mentioned, RhoConnect and server plugins by Adam and Lars. We also have two partners here this week working with us. One, Americana, is going to talk about how to get started with Ruby. An amazing language. Some of you may know it, some of you don't. Actually, show of hands, how many people have already done development with Ruby before? Okay, all right. That's actually a pretty decent show for an enterprise environment. It's one of the fastest growing programming languages in the world today. And when you think about it, and you think about building an enterprise app, and you think about the things that you need to do, having an effective programming language that gives you true object-oriented capabilities and meta languages and so on and so forth, you know, Ruby is really the way to go. You'd be surprised. Developing payment applications with RhoMobile. Prashant's here to talk about that. That's an exciting thing. How do I build applications using payment? Building consumer-like end-user experience, again with a partner. Banu's going to be talking about that, so that's exciting. And then I think James capping it off with a neat little fun. How do I build a fun? I think his example is well, I guess I won't spoil it. But talking about HTML5 and SVG, right? We don't give SVG enough love in terms of how do I build things when you're dealing with UI and you want high performance and leveraging the values of scalar vector graphics. Developer community, check it out. Launchpad, if it hasn't been plugged enough, it probably is because it hasn't been plugged enough. It's a full new site, relaunched it, updated it. Access to downloads, documentation, discussion boards, blogs. It's an exciting thing. Learn more about RhoElement Studio and RhoConnect. Pretty cool. Hey, Rob, just out of curiosity, how many people do we have registered on Launchpad now?
I checked last week, we have about 2,300.
Okay, 2,300 users registered.
Definitely over 2,000.
Okay, anyone in here, show of hands, everyone that's registered at Launchpad today already? Wow. Okay, that's awesome. Those of you that are not, you should really be wondering why you're not. Because I should say, first off, actually, let me back up. Launchpad is not just about RhoMobile. Launchpad is Motorola's new developer community. You want to get up there and you want to do Android development only for the ET1, there's a community inside Launchpad for that, right? Any of our products, we're lighting up new developer communities around them. So it's not just about RhoMobile. Look, hey, you want to build a native app on Android for the ET1, we're there to support you. We'll do that. That's fine. You want to build native Android apps, that's fine as well. I mean, if the first few slides didn't really give you an indication of the challenges, the risks associated to that, I don't know what does, but still, nonetheless, you can. Resources. Go and download the product. Like I said, 5,000. I guess another show of hands. How many people have actually downloaded the product? Okay, that's pretty good. All right, all right. Some of you still haven't. So let's try and get that number up to 6,000 in the next day. Because there's not that many people in here, so just download it a lot, okay? I've got a bot going that just keeps downloading it so that when I talk to Gartner and I say we had, no. The community, again, check out Launchpad. Docs.RhoMobile.com, a great resource. It's going to continue to be updated. We've actually got our docs and tech writer, lead docs and tech writer here today. Talk to him if you want. His name's David. His picture was up here. But we launched a whole new site last week as well with the new launch. It's really cool, really impressive. We've got a lot of plans for it in the future. All our documentation is going to be online right there for anyone to see, publicly exposed, Google for it, do whatever. Use it though. It's a great resource. And then webinars. The webinars are up on RhoMobile.com/webinars. We're doing a lot of work right now. We're going to relaunch them. We're going to re-record a lot of them. Do a number of things, but it's a great resource. You want to get started, know how to do something, a tutorial. Adam goes too fast today, and you're like, man, that thing on RhoConnect was awesome, but I missed that one key step. How do I do it? Go check out the webinars. They're all up there. There's about 60 webinars up there, ranging on all sorts of different topics. Check it out, but like I said, watch out for more of those. We're going to be redoing them, and we're going to hopefully be doing a bunch of new webinars every week moving forward. Follow us, please, on Twitter, at RhoMobile. We have about 3,600 followers. Definitely not enough. Just out of curiosity, how many follow us on Twitter? Oh, man. All right. You guys all failed. That's it. Okay. Great. Well, thank you, everyone. Looking forward to it. Excited and appreciate it much.